So this is going to be a really quick intro to my video because it's already 15 minutes long and I don't want to go any longer. Hi, how are you guys? I missed you. This is my question and answer video that I did a little interview for WEGO Health a few months ago, and I don't know what I'm doing with my face, but I'm framing it. So basically, I took all the parts of my answers from their questions to me, and I compiled all the videos into one question and answer video that I have made for you guys. So hope you enjoy it. Have a good week, because I'll see you next week, because I'm going to upload a video next week. Yay! Okay. Bye!
And I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma in February 2011. I was attending university and I was in my 4th year. I was working on my thesis and everything was good. And then I got a text from my parents that they were going to come and bring me out for dinner, and I was really excited because I hadn't seen my campus yet. And we had a nice dinner out, and then they wanted to kind of talk to me in my room by myself, so I thought it was kind of questionable. So my dad had asked me, how would you feel about moving back with us back home? And I was kind of caught off guard, and I just said, not very good, because I'm kind of in the middle of my thesis and I need to graduate. They said, well, you kind of need to be there with us. They just told me that the x-ray that I had had a week before showed that I could have some problems in there, so they were concerned. They threw around the word biopsy, so I instantly thought of cancer, and I got really terrified. And at the time I was in a residence. I was living with 3 other people, 2 of whom I was very close with. So I just kind of ran down the hall and was so scared and talked to them about it. And I wasn't sure if I was going to move back to the residence or what, because I didn't know what the results of the biopsy were going to be. Originally, the reason why I had an x-ray was because I had some side pain. So they just did some blood work. Nothing was abnormal, everything was fine, and then they did an x-ray. And it was just kind of random because they found all in my neck and under my arm and my chest, there were a whole bunch of swollen lymph nodes. I didn't know anything about lymphoma before, so it was all new to me. I had not even heard of it, other than my aunt was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma about a year before. Once I found out that it was cancer, I had a bone marrow biopsy to make sure that it wasn't in my bone marrow, and gone to my spine. And then I did a whole bunch of tests to make sure I was fit for chemo. And then I ended up having the ABVD, which I was very ill from. I got really sick and very nauseous. So I had that for 4 months, and then they decided that since the chemo was working, that they were going to continue with it so that I would get to avoid radiation. But then after 6 months of chemo in total, and they had said that the lymph nodes looked like they were shrinking, they wanted to get rid of it completely, so they asked me to go on radiation. And I did 15 treatments of radiation, so I had to drive an hour every day to go get radiation, which was a 5-minute treatment, and then drive an hour back home. And I had no symptoms from that, so I didn't react really in any way to the radiation. So that was good, but it was just a really creepy feeling having all that radiation on my chest and knowing that there's a risk of breast cancer in the future because of a treatment from cancer that you're trying to get rid of. For me, when I was going through my chemotherapy, the whole idea with the chemo and extending chemo was to avoid radiation. But when they found out that the chemo seemed to work, they decided that I was going to do radiation anyways. Basically, the reason behind that was because they wanted to eliminate all of the cancer on site. They wanted to reduce the risk of reoccurrence of Hodgkin's, and they wanted to just get rid of all the cancer right then and there. That's why they did the radiation for me. So I think that radiation is best used to eliminate any lingering cancer that's still in your system. It's very curable, and that's the first thing that my doctor said to me when I got diagnosed. So I was very happy, but when people call it an easy cancer, I don't understand. If a loved one or somebody close to you has been diagnosed with cancer, with Hodgkin's lymphoma or lymphoma in general, um, you know, it's not like a brain cancer that's going to be fast acting and all that. It's a very slow moving, slow acting cancer. So it's good to catch it in time. So I understand that people say, you know, it's an easy cancer because they want to cope and they want to tell someone that it's going to be okay. But if people are kind of brushing it off and they're like, oh no, she just has lymphoma, fine, she'll be okay, she'll get through the treatment and it'll be gone. It's a scary thing because even just through the treatments, they warn you about the chemotherapies and radiations and all the other treatments out there will affect you, and you could either relapse with the lymphoma or with another type of cancer. That I do think that it is curable, but I don't think it's as curable as they say. Like, there's tons of people out there who have relapse. You have this easy cancer, as they say, and you think it's out of the way, and then you either relapse or develop another cancer through the treatment. So it's scary. I find that there are a lot of misinformations out there and very contradicting information about dietary changes when you're diagnosed with cancer or to prevent cancer. And you see, you know, doctors on TV that are saying one thing causes cancer, so you should avoid it, but then another person says that you should have it because it prevents cancer. So to me, it's a really confusing area. So it's really difficult to know what's good and bad for you, but I just think the whole idea of just eating healthy, being conscious of what you eat, and trying to prevent any kind of disease, not only cancer, anything, trying to avoid it is beneficial to your health. To me, I just think that it has opened my eyes after going through chemotherapy and radiation and all the tests that you have to do, which have more radiation in them. You kind of want to take care of your body. I think that as a patient, you really need that support when you're diagnosed with cancer. And I think it's really hard for caregivers to give that support. And not only do the cancer patients need that strength from others, but caregivers also need it. And a lot of people don't realize that there's a heavy burden placed on the caregivers as well as the patients, because not only are they dealing with the fact that one of their loved ones was diagnosed with cancer and have to go through all of these intense treatments, but they also have to take care of them. And that's a really hard thing to do when you have to sit there and see the person that you love going through something so terrible. I think it's very overlooked, and people don't get the treatment that they need and support that they need for being a caregiver. And I'm really glad to see that things like Gilda's Club exist for not only the patients but the caregivers, because my family and friends have been amazing, and I know some of them have gone to, you know, counseling groups and support groups that do support caregivers. And I think that's amazing. I think that they need that, and it's a very difficult thing to deal with, and some people can't handle it. Because a lot of people think that when you're going through treatments and you're going through the diagnosis, it's very physical and it tolls on your body. Well, it does, but I think that the whole the diagnosis part especially is very emotional, because instantly when you hear cancer, you don't think of anything very positive. And also dealing with the symptoms of treatments like losing your hair, it's different when it happens to you, and you never think it will happen to you. But when it does, it's a very emotionally tolling thing, and it's a long process to have to deal with. When you go for your first chemo, they basically tell you that it'll take about 2 weeks, not even, for you to start losing your hair. So you really have to quickly adjust to such a big life change. The hardest part about it is maintaining a positive attitude throughout, because it is a very difficult thing to deal with, the emotional aspect of it, saying that you have cancer. And I found that running into people that I knew from high school or college, nobody knew what was going on with me. So when they saw me with no hair and I would just be wearing a ball cap on my head, they would look at me funny, and it would be a really awkward situation because you don't know how to deal with it. And just the cancer diagnosis is a shock to you, but when you have to explain it to other people who you may not have seen in years, it turns an awkward situation into basically a devastating one, because you don't want to have to admit out loud to somebody else, let alone yourself, that you have cancer. And just saying that word at first is devastating, and you don't want to have to repeat it. So I think that's the hardest part, is the emotional aspect of it, having to live the life of a sick person, or so they call it. You may not, emotionally feel sick, and you probably are in denial that you have a cancer because you never think it'll happen to you. But just to get connected to that word is a very distraught thing. So dealing with it every day, and for the rest of your life, even when you're done treatments. And I've adopted the term scanxiety, because every time you go for a scan, you still have to go every 3 months to get a checkup with your oncologist. So every 3 months or whatever it is that you have to go, you're always going to be anxious and scared that you're going to relapse. It takes over your entire life, but at the same time, you can't let it, because it doesn't define you. You're not cancer, you just had it, and it's definitely a life change, but something you have to adapt. It is a lifelong diagnosis. You're never going to be free of that. And I think that if you let that take over your life, then you're gonna go nowhere. So I think that surrounding yourself with positivity and people that care for you and can be there for you, but also to depend on yourself, I think that's really important, because you're going to have those days where you get down and you're sad about it. And even when you're cancer free like I am, you still get sad about what you've been through, or, a little bit scared that it might happen again in the future. You really need to just step back and look at it as kind of a blessing in disguise, because for me, I've really grown to appreciate everything small in life, and I don't stress anymore really over anything, because I just find nothing is really worth stressing over, because we are alive and we're living healthy lives, and you do the things that you need to do. And when you have those down days and you're going through treatments and you have, however long it takes you to recover, go enjoy life and surround yourself with people that can help you out, and join those clubs like Gilda's Club and other support groups that can help you get through, because you're not alone, and cancer affects so many people. And even though I didn't know what lymphoma was before I got diagnosed with it, I found that there's so many different people, even my age, that are affected by it. I didn't see anybody my age when I was in the chemo suite. So every time I was getting my chemotherapy or waiting in the oncology office, I was surrounded by people that were older than me. And I felt people would stare and kind of, were like, she's too young for this. And that's what I thought too. But I think that if you go on, websites, and you find those connections that maybe make you feel like you're not alone, and you're able to open up and explore your experiences together, it might help you get over something. You just have to push through every day, open up about your feelings. I just think keeping a positive attitude is really the best thing you can do. Keep busy every day, and live your life, basically.